The twin suns of the Orion Interstellar Academy were setting behind the crystalline dome that protected the campus from the thin atmosphere of Klyros or 4. Their fading orange light painted the glass walls of the grand library with warm fire. Inside, among quiet halls filled with glowing hollow shelves, Lena Carter sat alone at a floating desk. Her tablet hovered in front of her, displaying lines of complex xenopsychology notes. She tapped her stylus nervously, trying to force her mind to focus. The final exam was tomorrow. Her stomach was a tight knot. Humans were rare here. Out of thousands of students from dozens of star systems, fewer than 20 were from Earth. Most alien students whispered that humans were emotional, chaotic, impulsive. To Lena, those words felt like knives. She wanted to prove that humans could be just as logical, just as sharp as any crystalline-brained Tishar or memory-threaded Arvian. But xenopsychology was brutal. It wasn't just memorizing alien minds, it was learning to think like them. And no human had ever scored above 90% in the final. Lena closed her eyes. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. Then a voice spoke from behind her. "You look like you're about to punch that tablet." Lena jumped. She spun around in her hover chair and saw Elias Novak leaning against the doorway. He was tall for a human, with messy dark hair and a lazy smile that annoyed her. They had been in the same class for 2 years and they had argued in almost every group discussion. "Go away, Novak," she said flatly. He walked closer instead. "Can't. The professors just assigned me a study partner for the final." Lena frowned. So, he said, dropping into the chair opposite hers. "It's you." Lena blinked. "No, that's a mistake. I work alone." "Me too," he said. "Guess they're trying to make us suffer." He grinned, and something about the grin made her want to throw her stylus at him. "Wonderful," she muttered. "Let's just get this over with." A cold beginning. They started by dividing the exam topics: neural pattern mapping, cross-species emotional models, hive mind cognition. "I'll handle neural mapping," Elias said, typing quickly. "That's my strongest area," Lena protested. "Not anymore," he said without looking up. "I've been top of the class in that since semester 1. Lena's eyes narrowed. "Fine, then I'm doing emotional models." "You're terrible with emotions." "Wow," he said. "We're off to a friendly start." They worked in cold silence. Only the soft hum of hollow projectors and the faint whispers of distant alien students broke the air. Lena hated this. She hated that his notes were actually good. She hated how his voice distracted her every time he muttered a theory to himself. And she hated that he was human. Because if they failed, the alien students wouldn't say Lena failed. They would say humans failed, and Elias would drag them both down. Hours passed. The sun set completely and the dome turned dark. Outside, the stars of the Orion arm glittered like cold dust. Fractures by midnight, tension cracked. "You can't apply Tishar's social layer theory to Arvian emotion webs," Lena said sharply. "They're completely incompatible." Elias leaned back. "Only if you follow the standard model. But if you invert the effective polarity, that's impossible. Their neural fibers don't even—" "Yes, they do," he cut her off. "If you actually read the latest research." Lena slammed her stylus down. "I have read it." "You're twisting the data. You're scared of being wrong." Her cheeks flushed. "No, I'm scared of you ruining my score." For a second, silence hung like a blade. Then Elias sighed. "Look, Carter, I don't want to ruin anything. I want to win. And the only way we win is if we do this together." Lena stared at him. His expression was sincere, his usual grin gone. Something inside her softened. Just a little. "Fine," she said quietly. "Together." A shift, something changed after that. They began actually listening to each other. Elias explained his inverted polarity theory while sketching diagrams in glowing hollow ink, and Lena challenged him with counterexamples until they refined it into something brilliant. She showed him her model of how emotional contagion spreads in multi-species crews, and he found elegant patterns she hadn't noticed. They started finishing each other's sentences. At one point, an insectoid Clyer student scuttled past and paused to watch them, antennae twitching. It made a soft clicking noise to another alien nearby. Strange. Humans cooperating effectively. Lena heard it. Instead of feeling insulted, she smiled faintly. They worked straight through the night. The library emptied until only the hum of air circulators and the glow of distant starlight remained. Beneath the domat, Eero 2, Elias looked up. Hungry? Lena blinked. What? Food, he said. You know that thing humans need. She laughed unexpectedly. Right. There's a vending node by the east stairwell. They walked there together. The campus was silent. The hallways silver in the moonlight from Clyros 4's twin moons. The vending node hummed and produced 2 steaming synth coffee flasks. They sat on a bench beneath the massive glass dome of the library. Sipping quietly through the dome, the galaxy stretched in endless color. Veins of violet nebulae, clusters of blue stars, and the far curve of a gas giant's rings glittering like ice. For the first time all semester, Lena let herself breathe. Do you ever feel like we don't belong here? She asked softly. All the time, Elias said. Every time someone calls us emotional, every time they look surprised when we succeed. Lena nodded. They think emotions make us weak. Maybe they make us strong, Elias said. Aliens plan for centuries. We act, we leap, we burn bright. She glanced at him. There was no sarcasm in his voice, only quiet pride. She wondered why she had always assumed he was just arrogant. Maybe he was just fearless. Why are you here? She asked. He smiled faintly. Because I want to see the edge of the galaxy. And I want people to remember that humans were the first to get there. Lena felt a warm twist in her chest. She looked back at the stars so he wouldn't see her smile. The breakthrough. They returned to their desk with fresh energy. The caffeine sharpened their minds. They merged their notes into a single massive data sheet, refining arguments, checking logic threads, building something neither of them could have made alone. By HFY Stories, they had crafted a xenopsychology model so clean and elegant that even the Academy's AI tutors flagged it as exceptional. Lena leaned back, exhausted. We actually did it. Elias stretched, his joints cracking. Of course we did. She gave him a sideways look. Don't get smug. Too late. She shook her head, but she was smiling now. Something about working with him felt right, like their minds were orbiting the same sun. She didn't know if it was friendship, rivalry, or something nameless between the two, but it felt powerful, and it felt human. Dawn at 06. The first light of Clyros 4's twin suns crept through the dome again, spilling gold over the scattered desks. Lena blinked against the glow. Elias yawned, rubbing his eyes. We should get some sleep, he said. Yeah. She hesitated. Thanks, and for not being terrible tonight. He grinned sleepily. You too. They packed their things in silence. But it wasn't the cold silence from before. It was something warmer. As they walked out together, the alien students entering for morning study watched them curiously. 2 humans, side by side, calm, focused, proud. Lena didn't care what anyone whispered anymore. They had done something no one expected. They had proven that humans could stand shoulder to shoulder, not just as individuals, but as a team. And deep down, though she would never admit it out loud yet, Lena knew something had shifted between them. Not enough to call it love, not yet, but enough to make her heart beat faster at the thought of seeing him again tonight. The library dome stood silent like a glass mountain under the stars. The twin suns had set hours ago, leaving the sky black and full of silver light. The other students were gone, their chairs empty, their hollow screens dark. Only 2 humans remained. Lena Carter sat hunched over the glowing table, typing notes with sharp focus. Elias Novak sat across from her, head bent over diagrams. Their combined research floated in a shimmering display between them, threads of alien psychology mapped like constellations. It was past midnight, and the quiet felt heavy like the whole galaxy was holding its breath. Growing comfort at first, they worked without speaking, only passing notes or tapping points on the screen. But the silence between them had changed since earlier. It no longer felt cold. It felt calm, like the peaceful stillness before dawn. Lena realized she no longer felt the old tension around him. She didn't feel the need to prove herself every second. Instead, she found herself watching the way his eyebrows pulled together when he was deep in thought. You frown like an old man when you think, she said softly. Elias blinked. What? Your face, she said. You look like you're worried the universe might explode. He chuckled, rubbing his forehead. Maybe it will, Lena smiled. She hadn't expected to smile tonight. They kept working, but words began slipping into the spaces between calculations. Small words. Personal words, hidden histories, so, "Where on earth are you from?" Elias asked as he sorted data chips. Lena hesitated. She had never told anyone here. New Vancouver. The floating city? Seriously? His eyes lit up. That place has wind gardens and skyfish. I always wanted to see them. They're beautiful, she admitted. The gardens hum in the wind. At night the skyfish glow. My parents took me there when I was little before they left for Titan Station. Left, he repeated gently. Yeah, she kept her voice steady. Work, I stayed behind for school. Elias nodded slowly. That must have been hard. Lena shrugged, but his sympathy warmed her. No alien had ever asked her something like that. What about you? She asked. South Andes Arcology, he said. We had a dome in the mountains. Thin air, cold nights, stars so clear you felt you could grab them. That sounds lonely. It was, he said simply. But it made me want to leave Earth to see the stars up close. Lena looked at him. His eyes were calm, steady, like dark water. For the first time, she saw not her rival, but another human who carried the same quiet weight she did. The weight of being small in a vast galaxy, and trying to shine anyway. The storm begins, a soft chime rang from the dome's wall sensors. Lena frowned. What's that? Elias checked the alert feed. His relaxed expression vanished. Solar flare storm. A big one. From the local star? Yeah. Class M5. It'll hit the planetary shields in about 15 minutes. Lena's stomach tightened. That's bad. Not dangerous. The shields will hold, but they might. Flicker. As if to prove him right, the lights dimmed for half a second. They glanced around the empty library. Most of the campus was powered by shield energy. If the shields flickered hard enough, the power grid could collapse for a while. Should we go back to the dorms? Lena asked. Elias shook his head. Too far. Safer to stay here until it passes. Lena nodded reluctantly. They kept working, but the air felt tense now. The quiet no longer felt calm. It felt like the pause before thunder. Darkness, and minutes later the storm hit. It came as a silent flash across the sky. Outside the dome, the stars vanished in white light. The whole world glowed for an instant as if the sun had exploded. Then the library plunged into darkness. The holoscreens died. The ceiling lights went black. The only sound was the sudden, echoing silence. Lena's heart thudded. She couldn't see her own hands. Elias, she whispered. I'm here, he said softly from the darkness. His voice was steady, and somehow that steadiness reached her like a hand. Her panic eased. Emergency floor strips flickered on, casting a faint blue glow along the walls. Their faces were pale shapes in the dim light. Well, Elias said quietly, this is cozy. Lena laughed shakily. Cozy is one word for it. They sat back in their chairs, surrounded by shadow. The storm's electromagnetic waves rattled faintly against the dome like distant drums. There was nothing to do but wait. So they talked. Sparks in the silence, Lena wrapped her arms around herself. Do you think we'll pass the exam? Yes, Elias said without hesitation. You're confident. I have to be, he said. If we doubt ourselves, they win. They? The ones who think humans don't belong here. Lena looked at him. In the blue emergency glow, his eyes were soft but fierce. You really believe in us, she said quietly, don't you? She nodded slowly. I used to. Lately. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like we're pretending to be something we're not. Maybe, Elias said. Or maybe we're something they just don't understand yet. Lena thought about that. Outside, the storm raged unseen. Inside, they sat in a bubble of stillness. She found herself speaking thoughts she had never said aloud. When I first came here, I thought being human was a weakness, she said. We feel too much. We break too easily. We burn out fast. But we get back up fast, Elias said. We fight for each other. That's something they don't get, Lena smiled faintly. You talk like a leader. I talk like someone who's tired of being underestimated. Their eyes met across the table. For a long, quiet moment, neither of them looked away. Fragile light. The storm began to fade. The emergency lights brightened slightly as power flickered back through the circuits. Lena exhaled slowly. Still alive. Told you, Elias said. They both laughed, and the sound felt like a spark of fire in the cold. The holoscreens rebooted with a soft hum. and their research flickered back to life. But neither of them reached for it yet. Instead, they sat there in the faint light, quietly sipping the last of their cold synth coffee. Lena's mind felt strange, light, clear. Something had shifted. It wasn't just that they had survived the storm. It was that in the darkness she had trusted him completely, and he had been there. Calm, steady, warm, new energy. When they finally turned back to work, they moved like two halves of the same thought. They corrected each other's equations, filled gaps in each other's logic, and finished each other's sentences without pause. The earlier awkwardness was gone. It felt like flying. Around 3, they completed their emotional contagion model. It pulsed like a living web on the screen, glowing threads connecting alien species' minds in elegant patterns. Elias leaned back, impressed. "It's beautiful." "It works," Lena said, smiling. "You're brilliant," he said quietly. She looked at him, startled. "No one's ever said that to me here," she said. "Well, they should," he said. She couldn't stop her smile this time. It felt too real. Rest by 04:30, their eyelids were heavy. The storm had passed completely, and the campus lights outside glowed faintly against the dome again. They decided to rest for a while. Elias lay back on one end of the curved bench. Lena sat on the other end, knees pulled to her chest. They watched the stars in silence. It was the soft kind of silence now, the kind that feels safe. "Do you think we'll remember this night?" Lena whispered. "Always," Elias murmured. She turned her head. He had already closed his eyes. For a long time, she just watched him breathe. He looked peaceful, softer than she had ever seen him. Something fluttered in her chest, like a tiny wing. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew everything was different now. Dawn's edge, when the first glow of dawn touched the sky, they stirred awake. Elias sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Morning already?" "Yeah," Lena said softly. They stretched, packed up their notes, and prepared to leave. As they stepped toward the exit, Lena glanced back at the place where they had spent the night. Their shared notes still floated gently in the air, glowing like a constellation. It felt like they had built more than just a study project. They had built something invisible between them, something fragile and bright. And even though the exam still waited and the galaxy was still full of doubts about humanity, Lena no longer felt small, not with him beside her. The first thin light of Klyros 4's twin suns had just touched the horizon when the library's main holo display blinked red. Lena Carter was halfway through repacking her tablet when she noticed it. She frowned. "Elias, do you see that?" Elias Novak looked up from his datapad. His eyes narrowed. "Warning code. Data core access failure." Lena's heart gave a small lurch. "Is it from the storm?" "Probably." Elias moved closer to the floating red icons. His fingers danced across the screen. "Looks like half the central servers are down. The solar flare must have corrupted the power relays." "That's bad," Lena said slowly. "It's worse than bad." Elias's voice was tight now. "The Academy's main research archive is stored on those cores. If they stay offline too long, we could lose terabytes of student data." Lena's throat went dry. "That includes our project." "Yes," Elias said, "and hundreds of others." For a moment, they just stared at each other. Around them, the massive library dome remained empty and quiet, as if the building itself hadn't noticed the disaster yet. Then Elias took a sharp breath. "We can fix this," Lena blinked. We're already here. We're trained. And we know the layout from the systems class last year." "Fixing the Academy's data cores is not the same as passing an exam," she said. He met her gaze. "Do you want everything we worked for to just vanish?" Lena's chest tightened. He was right. If they waited for staff engineers to arrive, it could be too late. She straightened. "Okay, let's do it." The central data cores were buried deep under the library, in the substructure tunnels that most students never saw. They left their tablets behind and hurried down the silent halls, past rows of sleeping hollow shelves. Their footsteps echoed softly in the empty space. Emergency lights glowed faintly along the floor, painting their faces pale blue. Lena's mind raced as they reached the elevator shaft. "Do you think this is stupid?" she asked as they stepped inside. Absolutely, Elias said, pressing the controls. But it's necessary. The elevator dropped with a soft hum. The air grew colder, heavier. Lena shivered. She thought of how aliens described humans. Reckless, impulsive, emotional. Maybe they were right, and maybe that was why they would save this place. The silent tunnels, the doors opened to a low tunnel lined with fiber conduits that pulsed faint red. The hum of power was faint and uneven, like a heartbeat skipping. Power grid's unstable, Elias muttered. We have to work fast. They jogged down the tunnel, following the pulsing lights. The air smelled faintly of ozone from the storm surge. At the end of the corridor stood a massive round hatch with glowing warning symbols. The words Core Vault flickered above it in broken letters. Lena pressed her palm to the scanner. It won't open. Manual override, Elias said, crouching by the access panel. He pulled the cover off and started rewiring the locks. Lena crouched beside him, holding a glow strip so he could see. Their shoulders brushed. Neither moved away. Almost got it, Elias muttered. There was a sharp hiss and the hatch slid open. Inside, cold blue light filled a cavernous room. Towering crystal data spires rose from the floor, humming faintly. Hollow panels floated between them, flickering with corrupted static. Lena stared. She had never been down here before. It felt like standing inside the brain of a god. Race against time, Elias ran to the central console. I'll stabilize the power lines. You run a diagnostic on the memory lattice. On it, Lena said, hurrying to the other side. Her fingers flew across the glowing keys. Streams of corrupted code poured past her screen. She isolated the broken threads and tried to weave them back together. Lena, Elias called. Core temperature is rising. How high? Too high. If it hits 70 degrees, the lattice will shatter. Her pulse quickened. Then keep it below 70. Working on it. The room filled with the soft roar of cooling vents spinning up. Sweat trickled down Lena's temple as she worked. Her hands trembled, but her mind was sharp. She could hear Elias muttering equations under his breath as he rerouted power conduits. Sparks burst from a panel behind him. He didn't flinch. They were two small human shapes in a giant machine heart, holding it together with sheer will. The moment of collapse. Elias, Lena said sharply. I need 5 more minutes. You have 2, he shot back. Then stall the meltdown. I am stalling the meltdown. The spires hummed louder. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Then with a sudden loud crack, a power line burst overhead. A shower of sparks rained down between them. Lena gasped and shielded her face. Elias jumped forward and slammed the emergency cutoff lever. The sparks died. The lights flickered wildly, then steadied. Lena lowered her arms, heart racing. Are you okay? He looked back at her, soot streaking his cheek. He grinned crookedly. Still alive. How's the lattice? She checked the screen. Stabilizing. Almost done. The last corrupted code block vanished. The hollow display flashed green. Lattice restored, the system voice announced. Elias laughed in relief. We did it. Not yet, Lena said quickly. We have to seal the system or it could corrupt again. Right. Sealing now. They worked side by side, sealing the core, restarting the cooling fans, and resetting the power flow. Slowly, the temperature dropped. The hum steadied. The spires glowed calm and bright again. Witnesses when they stepped back, covered in dust and sweat. The hatch hissed open again. 3 alien engineers stood in the doorway, their strange forms silhouetted in the light. A tall crystalline Tishar, a small feathered Drian, and a floating orb-like Valen. They stared at the 2 humans. You saved the cores, the Tishar said in a voice like glass chimes. Elias straightened. Yes. You entered without orders, the Drian said sharply. We didn't have time to wait, Lena replied. Her voice shook but held firm. If we had waited, everything would be gone. The engineers looked at each other. The Valen's eye lights blinked slowly. Finally, the Tishar said, Your action was illogical, risky, reckless. Then it bowed slightly, and effective. You preserved the work of thousands. Lena blinked in surprise. The Drian's crest feathers lifted. Perhaps humans are not as undisciplined as believed. Elias gave a small smile. We get that a lot. The engineers moved past them to inspect the cores. One of them called the Dean on comms. Lena and Elias just stood there, side by side, breathing hard. For the first time, she realized they had just done something no one else in the academy had even tried, and they had done it together. The walk back, they left the tunnels while the engineers swarmed the core vault behind them. The elevator rose slowly toward the main floor. Lena leaned against the wall, exhausted. Her whole body trembled with leftover adrenaline. "I can't believe we just did that," she said. "Believe it," Elias replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were shining. "Everyone's going to know." "Good," he said. "Let them know." They reached the library again. Morning light was spilling across the floor like melted gold. The first students of the day were entering, sleepy-eyed and unaware of what had almost been lost. Lena and Elias walked past them, covered in grime, their clothes singed, their hands still faintly shaking. The alien students stared. A few whispered to each other. "They look human," one hissed in surprise. "Yes," said another, "and they saved us all." Recognition. As they neared the exit, the comm speakers chimed. A calm voice filled the air. "Attention. Thanks to the quick actions of 2 human students, the central research cores have been fully stabilized. All data has been preserved. The dean expresses highest commendation." The hall fell silent. Every alien turned to look at them. Lena felt her face flush. She wanted to hide, but Elias only lifted his chin and walked forward as if the stairs were sunlight. Whispers rose behind them. Some were surprised. Some were impressed, and some sounded like respect, quiet triumph. They reached the steps outside the library. The suns were fully risen now, painting the sky in orange and silver. Lena sat down on the steps, dropping her head into her hands. She was shaking with exhaustion and pride. Elias sat beside her. "That was insane," she whispered. "That was human," he said simply. She laughed weakly. "You're impossible." He smiled sideways at her. "So are you." They sat there for a while in comfortable silence, watching light spill across the campus domes. Students passed by, some glancing at them with new eyes. For the first time, Lena didn't feel like she was shrinking under the weight of alien judgment. She felt tall. She felt like she belonged. A new bond. After a long time, Elias stood. "Come on, we still have an exam," Lena groaned. "Right, I almost forgot." They walked back toward their dorms side by side. Their shoulders brushed now and then. Neither moved away. Lena didn't fully understand what had changed between them in the tunnels, but she knew something had. They had faced chaos together, and they had won. And somehow it felt like more than teamwork now. It felt like trust, like they were part of each other's gravity. As they reached the dorm tower, Elias paused. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm glad it was you." Lena looked at him. "Me?" "Saving the cores, being my partner." "All of it." She felt her chest tighten. "Me too," he smiled, tired but real. Then he turned toward his room. Lena watched him go, her heart beating fast. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of the exam. She wasn't even thinking about it. She was thinking about him, and about how the galaxy had just seen what 2 humans could do when they stood together. The first thin rays of dawn touched the crystal domes of the Orion Interstellar Academy. The soft golden light filtered through the grand library's tall glass arches, slowly pushing away the shadows of the long night. Lena Carter sat at the edge of the study table, her head resting on her arms, staring at the brilliant glow creeping across the floor. Elias Novak was beside her, slouched in his chair, looking up at the ceiling as if trying to process everything that had happened in the past hours. The night had been long, exhausting, and unforgettable. They had fought through fear when the storm hit, worked as a flawless team to save the Academy's data, and somehow found their hearts opening to each other without even realizing it. The silence around them now was not awkward anymore. It was peaceful. It was full of something soft and new. Lena raised her head and looked at Elias. He looked back at her, his brown eyes warm and gentle. They both smiled quietly. "I can't believe it's morning already," she said softly, almost afraid that speaking too loudly might break the magic around them. "Yeah," Elias replied, his voice tired but calm. "It feels like everything changed while the night passed." Lena chuckled faintly. "It really does." They sat like that for a moment, just watching the sunlight crawl higher. The library, which had felt like a cage during their stressful studying, now felt like a sanctuary. The books around them seemed less like cold information and more like silent witnesses to their journey. Elias leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Do you feel different? Lena tilted her head. How do you mean? I mean, he paused, searching for the right words. Before last night, I thought of you as just a rival, another human trying to be the best among all these aliens. But now, he trailed off, eyes dropping to the table. Now I don't see you as just a classmate anymore. Lena's chest tightened. Her heart began to race, but not from fear. She lowered her gaze, a shy smile pulling at her lips. I don't see you as just a rival anymore either, she whispered. They both fell silent again, not because they didn't know what to say, but because there was too much to feel. The silence was full, like the air right before rain. They could hear faint sounds from far outside. Alien birds beginning their morning songs, distant hums of shuttle engines starting the day. The world was waking up, but inside this library dome, time seemed to slow just for them. Elias broke the silence with a gentle laugh. Do you think anyone will believe what we did last night? Lena laughed softly too. Probably not. They'll just think we stayed up late to cram for the exam. We saved the Academy's data network, Elias said, shaking his head in disbelief. And somehow, we ended up here. Here, Lena repeated, smiling. Together. That word hung in the air between them like a soft light. Together. It felt right. Elias hesitated, then stood up slowly. He walked to the wide glass window and stood looking out at the sunrise. The orange light painted his face, making him look softer than Lena had ever seen him. After a long pause, he spoke, not turning to look at her. Lena, I don't want this to end when the day starts. I don't want to go back to just pretending we're only partners. Lena's breath caught. She rose from her chair and walked to stand beside him. The warmth of the glass window touched her skin, and the warmth of his presence made her heartbeat quicken. I don't want that either, she said simply. Elias turned his head and looked into her eyes. Then what do we do? Lena smiled gently. Maybe. We stop pretending. For a long, still moment, they just stood there side by side, watching the first full light of day fill the sky. The storm from the night before had left the atmosphere clean and clear. Distant alien mountains glowed with golden light, and the skies were a deep blue that reminded Lena of home on Earth. Elias finally spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. You know, everyone here thinks humans are weak because we feel too much. But maybe that's what makes us strong. Lena nodded slowly. We care, we feel. We fight because of it. That's what kept us going last night, Elias said. Not logic, not fear, just each other. Lena turned toward him fully. And that's what makes us human. Elias smiled softly, a smile filled with more emotion than she had ever seen on his face. Yeah. Then without overthinking, without fear, he reached out and gently took her hand. Lena's fingers curled around his. It felt natural, like their hands were meant to fit together. Warmth spread up her arm, through her chest, into her heart. She realized she had never truly felt safe at the academy until this moment. They stood like that as the light grew brighter. Two human students holding hands in the grand alien academy library, proving without words that humanity's greatest strength was not their minds or their machines. It was their hearts. Eventually, they had to move. Life was calling. The halls outside began to fill with soft footsteps and the murmurs of other students arriving for the morning. Somewhere far off, a chime rang to signal the start of the new day. Lena and Elias reluctantly let go of each other's hands, though they stayed close as they packed their notes and tablets. The study table was still messy from their frantic work, covered in scattered data pads and half-drunk cups of synth tea. It looked like the aftermath of chaos, but to them it looked like the scene of their victory. They walked out of the library side by side. The glass doors hissed open, letting in fresh morning air. A few alien students passed them, glancing curiously at the two tired humans. Some even nodded in quiet respect. Word of their daring data rescue had spread quickly through the academy. Elias and Lena shared a small, private smile. They didn't need applause. They had something better. As they walked along the glowing path that led from the library dome to the main academy tower, Lena spoke again, softly. Do you think this is going to be hard? She asked. Elias glanced at her. What do you mean? Us, she said, being more than partners. We're still students. We still have to prove ourselves to all the others here. And We're human. Everyone's always watching us, Elias thought for a moment. Yeah, it might be hard. He reached out and took her hand again, openly this time, not caring who saw. But I think it'll be worth it, he said firmly. Lena smiled, squeezing his hand. Me too. They walked on, fingers intertwined, feeling the soft warmth of the rising sun on their faces. They passed towering alien statues, shimmering banners of 100 worlds and glowing hovercrafts drifting through the morning sky. All around them was the strange beauty of the galaxy, but for the first time neither of them felt small. They felt strong. They felt human. And they felt together. Later that morning in the great auditorium, the dean of the academy gave a brief announcement. He praised the bravery of the 2 human students who had protected the academy's data during the storm. He called it a shining example of human spirit. Aliens from many worlds clapped politely, though some still looked puzzled by the idea of risking everything just to save others. Lena and Elias simply sat side by side, quietly proud. They didn't need everyone to understand. They just needed each other. As the ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse, Elias leaned closer and whispered, "So, what now?" Lena smiled softly. "Now we face everything. Together." That evening after classes, they returned to the library. This time it wasn't for studying. They sat on the same table where they had started as rivals only one night ago. The library was quieter again, though not as dark or stormy. The stars outside were calm and distant. The emergency lights were gone. Everything glowed with peaceful order. Lena rested her head lightly on Elias's shoulder. He didn't move or speak, just let her stay there. It felt natural, like breathing. For the first time in a long time, neither of them felt like they had to prove anything. Not to the aliens. Not to the academy. Not even to each other. They had already proved it. Through courage, through trust, through caring. Through the simple truth that they were human, and that being human was enough. As the stars rose higher, they finally left the library hand in hand, walking into the night gardens. The strange glowing flowers lit their path. Alien birds fluttered in the trees above. The air was cool and sweet. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. They had said everything that mattered without words. Their hearts spoke louder than anything else ever could. At the garden gate, they stopped. Elias turned to Lena, his eyes gentle. "I'm glad we were study partners," he said softly. Lena smiled. "Me too. And I'm even more glad," he continued, "that we're not just that anymore." Lena laughed quietly, then leaned closer. "Me too." They kissed softly under the twin moons of the academy world. It was not rushed or dramatic. It was simple, true, and full of promise. And as they stood there, wrapped in the quiet night, it felt like the whole universe was holding its breath around them, watching, listening, and quietly smiling, because in a single night, 2 human hearts had found each other, and that made the galaxy just a little brighter.